All right, hello and welcome. So before we get into today's video, we have a sponsor for today's video, and that sponsor is The Ridge. The Ridge makes high-quality wallets out of metal and elastic that save you space and time getting to the things you need. I've personally used and loved them for years, but they also have a 45-day risk-free return policy, so you can try them yourself. So if you'd like to get yours today, head to theridge.com/brozime and enter code BROZIME at checkout to get 10% off and help support the channel. Thanks so much to The Ridge for supporting the channel themselves and sponsoring this video. Now, let's get into it. Okay, so in today's video, we are going to be talking about a new and very fast way to level. However, this has some pretty high requirements. Just warning you ahead of time, this is going to ask a lot from not only your MR, but also having acquired many of the different tools in the game to be able to do this. So this is pretty much for experienced players only because it is so high requirement. That being said, it is very fast leveling, especially if you do this in a group, but is still very fast solo. With a booster, I have not really had any runs that have been like over 10 minutes to get me from 0 to 30, and that's solo, which is very, very fast. So how do we set all this up? Well, first and foremost, this involves Helminth. Helminth is required for this, and there are two main hoops to jump through. The first and foremost is that this is going to be utilizing Thermal Sunder. So you need to feed Helminth a Gauss. Having an extra Gauss, that's a barrier to entry for sure, but I think it is well worth it. And once you do have Gauss subsumed, the infuse cost is actually very, very low. It's just calcs, biotics, and synthetics. And if we go in and look at calcs, we know that this has access to Lucent Terra Globes, which will give 60% on a full green up arrow, and that's very, very easy to get. You can see I have tons of these, and Iridite is available here. Tons of good things to be able to feed into Helminth to get that. For Biotics, we have a very similar situation with Ganglion giving up to 60% on a full green arrow, and then Maprico being very easy to get, along with a few other things in here being quite nice, like Pustulite. So that stuff's very, very easy. And Synthetics, you have, field round samples, detonite ampules, Aroka cells, circuits, polymer bundles, lots of great options in here in order to get that material. And for synthetics, you only need 35%, and for biotics, it's even more trivial with only 15%. So the main thing is going to be the calcs, which is arguably the easiest one to get. So I think these material costs are going to be relatively low, especially if you're planning to put like 5 forma into a Warframe, and this is going to speed that process up significantly. So there are some extra hooks to this. First and foremost, whenever you go to infuse the ability, you need to infuse over your first slot. Because we are using this in a leveling sense, if you put this on your first ability, it's going to be immediately unlocked, and we're going to be spamming this in order to level up. So replace your first ability. Obviously, whenever you go to do this, you can replace it on like a C slot and then just leave it on there. And if you decide you want it over your first ability, then you can keep it, but you can go back and do whatever else later. Throw it on all the slots and remove it at whatever other point. If you're planning on using Thermal Sunder in the long term, you can also have that. But otherwise, always put it over your first slot for the purposes of leveling. So there, we have a barrier to entry on resources. On top of that, this is going to need a build in order to make it able to do it. And for that, I have been using this. So the build itself is pretty malleable, but there are some hard restrictions. For this, obviously, you can see that I have 8 extra capacity, but this is max rank. Because I'm MR 29, that means that if this was rank 0, I'd have 6 extra capacity. So for every 2 capacity, basically, you can be 1 MR lower and use this build. So for this build, you'd be able to be MR 26, and then you could put all these mods on here. That being said, all these mods are not required. You can reduce that by another 7 MR and make it an MR 19 build by just removing redirection, which is definitely not needed in order to be able to do this. On top of that, you can reduce this by yet another 2 MR down to MR 17 availability by, instead of taking Transient Fortitude, just putting on Intensify, which is super valid. Also worth noting, you can use Umbral Intensify over Transient Fortitude if you don't have it maxed, as they're also pretty comparable, because like the lingering duration of Thermal Sunder will sometimes matter. That being said, in this video, what you're going to be seeing is me using this full thing. Mostly redirection is there just for it being comfy. Obviously, if I wanted to make this a better build for purposes of leveling even quicker, this could be even more power strength, but I didn't really want to go that route, as that makes it considerably more restrictive for more people to use. That being said, this is like an MR 15 plus thing, and you can't really skimp on the range mods at all. You basically need stretch, overextended, auger reach in order to make this build really do what it's supposed to do. And fleeting expertise, I would really highly recommend. However, another thing on that is that we're doing this with Mag, who has some pretty bare bones polarities. You only get 2 dash polarities. If you are using a Warframe that has a V polarity or a D polarity, you are going to be way, way better off in what you can fit. And I kind of wanted to use Mag as sort of a worst case scenario for available polarities for you. Outside of, multiple D polarities, but even that's really not so bad. You just have to dunk a little bit down to like Intensify or whatever, and it'll be super fine. I've done this on a Naros as well, but didn't want to show that because he doesn't need any defensive mods to be able to utilize this. Along with that, this is going to use up a lot of energy. So not only should you be running Xeneric on your operator so that you can continually generate energy, I've also been using a melee tool to generate tons of energy. So this can be done with any Zaw, and this is a pretty basic heavy attack build, 2 forma, just doing the do. Obviously, there are 4 prime mods on this build. I will say you do not need to be all prime modded out, but Sacrificial Steel I would have at least rank 8 for doing this. And Prime Pressure Point can be regular, Primed Reach, regular Reach will do, and for Primed Fever Strike, you can use regular Fever Strike. The prime mods are not really required outside of Sacrificial Steel. Thankfully, if you've done your quests, you already have a Sacrificial Steel to utilize here. Now, the thing that is much harder to get than the build is Exodia Brave. So Exodia Brave is an Exodia from the Plains that says, on heavy attack kill, plus 5 energy rate for 4 seconds stacks up to 3 times. So this basically means that every kill you get with a heavy attack is going to generate you 20 energy. And it's going to be 5 per second for 4 seconds. So you're going to be getting 15 energy a second whenever you kill multiple enemies with a heavy attack, and that's going to last for 4 seconds. That's 60 energy basically every single time you heavy attack with your weapon, because it's going to be very easy for it to kill the enemies in these scenarios. And that's a ton of energy for you to utilize in spamming your brand new one. This is really, really effective for leveling in solo, and I would say it is probably like the fastest way to do it if you don't want to be doing the Adaro farm, which utilizes the Equinox ability to do a stealth farm. And that farm is so insanely monumentally boring. This is considerably more exciting to me personally, though I will probably make a video on doing it that way as well. So with that, I have recorded a couple of different runs. As you can see, there is forma. There's 3 forma on here, because I've just been forming this slot that I'm not using for the build each time to just, refresh the run and get a couple different recordings of it. I have decided to include 2 runs. One of them starts out absolutely terribly, and then I get the best tile faction combination that you can get, and I instantly shoot up to level 30. The other one is also a really poor run and showcases kind of the really low points that you can get to in this. The reason the runs are going to be like that is because I wanted to show it in a realistic way, so I'm not just going to record until I get a perfect run. And also, like, it can just go that way sometimes that you get a poor run. I will say what you want for doing this is you want your early rooms to be small, but you want all of them to be small. Obviously, in an ideal world, that's what you want out of Sanctuary Onslaught. And you want the factions to be usually Corrupted early is good. Corpus is the best. And you can do Grineer late, and you never want Infested. The reason you never want Infested is because they're easy to kill, but there are a ton of energy leeches. And even if you're gaining, like 20 energy per second, they don't care, and all your energy will be gone. And because this is a spamming abilities build, that makes things a little bit, just unnecessarily complicated, because you're going to need to suss them out and slam them with the hammer, and you lose a bunch of time doing that. Not to mention, Infested have the worst, unit to affinity ratio in the game, so there's that. So yeah, basically, the whole gist is to take all these things, put them together on whatever Warframe you need to throw a bunch of forma into, and then just slam out some Sanctuary Onslaughts. Sadly, we can't do Elite Sanctuary Onslaught for the higher leveled enemies, but works quite well in regular Sanctuary Onslaught, and I will just send you guys over to those recordings. Hopefully you enjoy them. And yeah, the first one is going to be the run where the first 2 rooms suck and then the 3rd room levels me to max. And then the other one will be like the worst case scenario at the end of the video, so you can see how you can get really unlucky sometimes, but still level in about 10 minutes. But yeah, I will see you guys later. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Bye, everybody.
I've been thinking, operator. I thought you'd want to know. Operator, you have remembered well how the 10 are on themselves.
Some answers we need not know. Seclude